Right, so to really understand the purpose of this video, first you have to understand the idea, which I believe is a chemistry idea, of solution, suspension, and colloid. These are three kinds of ways you can put things in things, usually in liquid. It's kind of like three main types of liquid, but it can also be, gas or air, things in air and things in other, whatever. First we have solution, which is essentially it's salt in liquid. So it's when something is, you've added something which dissolves into the water, or I believe it's like a liquid thing that you've added to liquid, so it's completely mixed in. We can see this is all mixed in by the picture. The next is suspension. So you've got these little things here which they haven't mixed in. Maybe little bits of their essence, like you put little bits of lemon in, but the lemon itself still has a structure and it hasn't exactly mixed into the water, if you understand what I mean. See, this is pieces of something, suspension, it's suspended in liquid. The next one is colloid, which the best way I can describe it is like smoke in air. I believe smoke in air is a colloid. References that. So it's usually, at least if it's in water or air, it's like micro particles which creates this kind of mist or a cloud of something. And when we turn metal into a colloid, you get this metal that looks like a fluffy cloud suspended in the water, and it doesn't mix with the water, though you can get it to a point where, for example, if you look up gold, colloidal gold, it's pink if it's weak and it's red if it's strong, because it's so heavily suspended in the water and mixed into it that it looks like a solution, but apparently it's not. It's still a colloid, so it's still tiny little pieces of gold, mixed in with this. Now, usually solutions will be gained by, for example, if you look at acids, you dissolve a metal in hydrochloric acid, in sulfuric acid, in nitric or whatever. You get the salt, you draw the salt, and then it becomes, iron sulfate, copper sulfate, etc. And it's just a salt in this solution of water. Suspension is, we can think of as neutral, because it's just putting pieces of metal into water. It doesn't, you're not really doing anything much. And colloid is what I think of as kind of more alkaline. So usually you will use the alkali to get it. You can also do electrolysis processes on metals to get colloids, I believe. Though this video is more on the chemical acquiring of them. So anyway, I'll show you the video. So I've been experimenting with colloidal for metals, which apparently is like, I believe, the monoatomic form. Either way, I don't know, you get this interesting kind of powdery, cloudy stuff. As you can see, this one's yellow, it's kind of mixed in with the water now. This one has settled down to the bottom. It's still got an interesting kind of colored water. It's a nice blue color. And this one as well similarly has settled down to the bottom. People use these on plants. People use this as supplements. It's seemingly, from my research, is a fairly non-toxic as long as the dosage is small enough. Of course, it is a dosage which makes poison, because again, excessive stimulation of the throat or the nerves is what creates a nerve poison. If you quarter that and you make it a small stimulation of the throat or the nerves, you then have a throat or nerve tonic. Here are the ingredients for the first step. First step is you're going to need a container. Don't use metal because we're using acids, and probably don't use wood. Glass is the best bet. Just use any kind of jar. Just be gentle because they're heat sensitive. You need a piece of metal. This is a piece of tin we're going to test out. So tin, you can use whatever metal you want. I've also found this can kind of work with some mineral salts like sulfates and such. So you can also do it with, probably an iron sulfate. The other ingredient, as you can see there, is a hydrochloric acid, and a hydrogen peroxide. I use 3%, 6% also works. Specifically, you do not want to use vinegar and peroxide. While this can dissolve metals into their salt form, I find when alkalizing it, it produces a very wrong effect, as you can see there. Anyway, let's get into it. So I'm just going to put the metal in and put half and half of the acids. Sorry to say, but I lost the footage of myself pouring in the liquids. Essentially, you just put the piece of metal into the glass, and then you pour your acid in, and then you pour the peroxide, and you do half and half of those, and not a very large amount. Maybe 100 milliliters all up. You can kind of see the metal ever so slightly reacting. Little particles and bubbles coming off it. Alright, so I have sodium hydroxide. I believe you can use other hydroxides, and I've also got a spoon here. It's been bubbling up. You can see it's kind of got some condensation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a lot of water in there, or a bit of water in there, and I'm going to pour the water off into another jar, and I'm going to collect the metal because I don't want the metal, and then I'm going to put the water back and put this liquid back in here, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, here you can see there's a little more liquid because I had to, I added some to it, but it's still the liquid and it has no metal. And now what we want to do is we want to slowly add the hydroxide until it changes its color. So you can see here, spoonful, and you want to do this slowly because it gets hot. Add it in. You can see it's starting to react. And it gets hot. So you got to be careful with the glass. You can see it's kind of bubbling and boiling. And did we change it? Look at that. There we are. Like magic. Cool, isn't it? Oh wow. So just to help it settle, you can start to kind of see on the edge there that it's settling a little bit, but when it's warm it's harder to settle it. I'm going to add water. Also be gentle. If it's very hot, you want to be slow at adding the water. Because again, if it's hot glass and cold water, it'll smash. So that's good, and we just wait for that to settle. And look at that. Doesn't that look cool? And different ones will be different, like silver tries to stay up the top and you just have to kind of shake it a bit to get it go back down. This one's kind of chilling all around the place. Alright, look at that. As you can see, we've got this stuff down the bottom and it's kind of milky in there. And we'll take it down here to the sink, just pour it off. When you start to see it kind of coming out like so, and you stop, you see that? With all this, what we're washing out is the alkalinity and the salt. Now if you've got a bunch of stuff down the bottom, you can shake it up and then pour it into a new jar and then leave stuff. I mean, like if you've got minerals at the bottom or metal, or get more water going. And you can see it's full, and you want to do that about 5 times depending on how big the container is. And eventually, once it's ready, you'll kind of dip your finger in and taste it, and if it's not salty and if it's not alkaline, if it's just regular water, then it's done. And then you can pour off the water and dry it out, or you can leave it in water, or preserve it in alcohol, or do whatever you want.